This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Iron Mountain Government Solutions and Carasoft. Welcome back. The Chief Information Officer of the Navy, Jane Rathbun, told you on last week's FedGov Today TV, data is a critical part of her service's Information Superiority Vision 2.0. You can watch that show in the archives at fedgovtoday.com. Melissa Carson is Vice President and General Manager of Iron Mountain Government Solutions. At Sea Air Space, she says the department's data deluge isn't going away.
Data is needed for every part of the operation, servicing both the war fighters there, but then also the highly integral systems to even navigate, right, anymore. So it is now going to become the standard there, and, needing a good, solid data foundation in order to be able to both either make the right decisions for the war fighters real time, right, or make sure, right, they navigate correctly through.
Yeah. What makes a good data system? Are the services getting better at putting a whole chain, an infrastructure in place to be able to support the data needs, for example, in warfighting at the tip of the spear?
Yes, slowly but surely, right? But we're finally seeing that they're paying attention to kind of a strong data management governance piece. They've realized, as they've been kind of dabbling in AI, it's been around for a while, along with machine learning and some of those pieces, that weren't getting the right decisions. And what they found out was they're missing data. They didn't know where data was, or what I call is kind of, speaking of the Navy, kind of swimming in data there, right? So most of the data they've had historically on these legacy systems and legacy infrastructure, right, is 80% unstructured. So they can't use it, right, with AI. So now they're deciding they need to take a step back, actually get a solid data governance infrastructure on there before then they can go move forward with AI.
The old catchphrase from Secretary Rumsfeld, the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns, applies, it sounds like, in this data space to what the department is trying to wrap its arms around. Is that a fair read on that part?
Absolutely. In fact, we kind of say you can't govern what you can't see.
Yeah.
And that puts an immense amount of risk, right? Particularly in this world of cyber and cybersecurity, right? So if there's missing data, right, or somebody in some data silo gets their hands on it, an adversary, right, and they didn't even know it existed, right, it's creating great risk. So that's why they need to get their own house in order, right, to be able to securely deliver their mission.
Are the risk management best practices in this area the same as risk management best practices in other parts of the technology landscape?
Not exactly. I mean, obviously, we have a heavy presence, at Iron Mountain in the civilian space, and there's a completely different, we do the tax returns, right, and some of the veterans claims processing. In this space, though, you've got a much more, obviously, even you can see at the show, a physical nature to it, meaning there are physical assets, right, that are depending upon this data. A little bit different than a tax return form or a veteran's claim. So a little bit more dangerous, I would say.
And it's interesting to me, too, because with all the sensors that everybody are talking about here, those are all feeding data. So those physical assets are also generating data that I imagine must be part of that data governance challenge.
It is. So as I said, every day, there's kind of what the statistic is, like 453 terabytes, right, of data. And, to try and track it. If you don't even have a data structure in place for your legacy data, there's no way. They keep piling in, and that's why 80% is still unstructured data, because they're not taking care of it and putting a strategy together to actually structure it as it's coming in.
How important is it to go back and structure data that's not structured versus what you just described, which is making sure that it's structured as you get it?
We believe, particularly, here in the Department of Defense and the other commands, is with some of the other activities they've had in some of the regions, right, if they don't have that structured, right, and they can't use that as lessons learned, everything from topical kind of information or even previous kind of video feeds that they've gotten, they're really missing out, right, and maybe starting from scratch when they wouldn't have